All right, guys, we'll get started here. Next slide. Thank you to your sponsors. You know, guess what? I'm the sponsor this month. I brought pizza. Normally we give away like a book or something, but I figured people might be hungry, so I brought pizza this month. Next month we'll give away a book again, or a gift card. Next slide. Here's the 2026 schedule. You guys should have gotten this in your email if you're up on the mailing list. If you're not, there's a QR code on the signs out front. Just sign up. Again, there's not a ton of spam or anything. It just gives you, reminder emails and then like some sponsor giveaway stuff. This month, obviously, we'll talk about Rhys speaking. Next month is going to be Amy and Jennifer. They're the couple of girls that come from Biloxi. They're going to talk some creative financing and some different stuff that they do with some of the money that they manage a lot of capital for some like family offices and such, and so they're going to talk some of the kind of the cool ways that they're using that money. I will be out of town in March, but we're still going to have somebody here to manage. So there'll be a networking event then. We're going to be in Tampa, going to USF to see if my son wants to go to school there, and then I bought my wife, like an idiot, I bought my wife Disney passes for the year, so. Wow. Damn. That's what. Then we got Dean coming back. I don't know if you guys remember Dean. He was the guy that did all the automation stuff, but he works for private equity now. So we're gonna do. He's buying businesses with a company that's like crushing it in the HVAC business space. So he's gonna come talk, and then the rest of it you guys will forget by that point, anyways. But we'll have this up again if you guys need to take notes or anything on the dates. Next one. All right. If you don't know Rhys, you'll know him by the end of the night. He's the smartest man in real estate that I know. I'm not saying that because he's my boss. I'm saying it's because he's true.
What's crazy is that's actually not the case. So I work for Caleb.
But Rhys is one of the managing brokers and I guess owner heir of Rinke, Robert's son. So he's going to talk local market metrics for the year, guys. Like I try to do every January, talk where we're going to be over the next year. And obviously, if he had a crystal ball, he would be a billionaire. So all of this is projections off of knowledge. It's not financial advice, but it'll be there for what we need. So for buying, flipping, planning on selling anything this year, commercial, residential, anything, this will be a good presentation for you guys. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming out. Woo! Yeah, so I just think that this concept of bringing people together and talking about investing first and foremost is really cool. So I know a lot of faces in here. So yeah, my role as the managing owner of Rinke Realty, a lot of it is working directly with our agents, but a big component of it is understanding what kind of the trend in the market is, understanding the data, and informing our agents, right? And that way they can inform their clients. So a lot of this information is stuff that we disseminate to our agents, so that they can pass it along to their clients. So we'll get right into it. Like Caleb was saying, if anybody has a crystal ball, right, they're worth $1 billion or maybe more. So this is speculative. Obviously, nobody knows the future, but a lot of it is based on historical trends, what's happened in the past, and then just what we see coming down the pipeline. The economy tends to be cyclical. So we've gone through, if you guys have been keeping up with the real estate market, we've been going through a slower market over the last few years. And it actually fared, and we'll get into this, but it fared pretty well during the last couple of years, relatively speaking. So I thought, it's interesting to see how when interest rates started flying up, and it's not that they went higher than they've ever been by any means, but they went faster. They went up faster than they had in the past. A lot of people were predicting the whole thing to kind of bottom out again. And I think before we get into this, just generally speaking, the reason that didn't happen is because there was such a fundamentally strong real estate market. And everything in life is supply and demand. and we didn't have this exuberance of supply in the market that existed when 2008, 2009 happened. So that helped with kind of softening the blow and setting a floor to where prices didn't drop in a major way. So we'll go into the first slide here. So this is just one thing I try and do is keep perspective, right, of what's happened. And you know, the real estate market, investing in the real estate market has been a huge win if you got in the game. In the last 30 years, 300% gains, you know, in the real estate market. So massive wins. In the last 5 years, right, so we see this a lot. You know, somebody will say, my house, you know, is worth 5% less than it was maybe. And every market is different, so there's micro markets, right? But let's say the beach market right now. My house is worth 5% less than it was last year. Okay, and there's a bunch of reasons that could be. But when you look at the totality of the last 5 years, it went up nearly 60%, right? So it's still one heck of a story. So you really have to span out and not just look at this, you know, with a magnifying glass. You have to really, you know, step out and kind of understand what's happened around it. So I always love to talk about, you know, just how much the real estate market has won over the last 35 years. Okay, you can roll to the next slide. This is only going through Q1 of 24, because typically, you know, this is from the St. Louis Fed. But so it goes through 24. It's lagging data, but I think the trend here is interesting in the fact that equity and real estate values have greatly outpaced mortgage liability. Essentially, the debt people have taken on to own real estate. So values, and I think the main thing to take away from this is exactly what I was saying before, in that there was such a fundamentally strong market that we were in when interest rates went up so fast. And why it didn't crash is because people were a lot more conservative, right? As opposed to 2007, or prior to 2007 and 8. You know, a lot of people were buying in excess of what they could really afford, you know, and you guys have probably watched the movies on all of that, The Big Short, all that kind of stuff. But in essence, you know, people owned 3, 4, 5 homes. Maybe they couldn't afford it. They were doing HELOC loans and buying RVs, whatever it may be. That people had PTSD from that whole crash. And so they really didn't go leverage themselves in a major way. And a ton of people paid off their homes. So the next slide is that, and this shocks me every time I hear it, that 2/3 of Americans have paid off their mortgage, or at least 50% of their mortgage. Now, that's when or the equity. So that's comparing the real estate value, okay? So they've got 50% equity in their home, in essence, 2/3 of Americans. That's not a scenario that, I don't know that that's ever been the case in the history of the country. So, you know, it's a very strong position to be in, and I think that's why, you know, people didn't have to sell this last go around, so you didn't, when interest rates went up, so what they did is they just locked in. Have you heard of the lock-in effect with real estate, maybe on the news? You know, in essence, what it means is, you know, a lot of people had a 3.5%, 4%, 5% mortgage rate, and they just said, no, I'm gonna sit tight, I'm gonna wait and see. So that prevented inventory from flooding the market, the supply, and therefore, even with demand lower in a pretty significant way, you know, prices just didn't fall that much. So, you wanna roll to the next one? I like this slide mainly because it gives perspective on that, you know, one of the things that the challenges that we have in the real estate business is just getting people to actually see the facts and not the emotional noise of what's being told on both sides of the fence in the news outlets, right? So this is being in it every day, I see this stuff and I'm like, oh man, here we go again. So they did a moratorium on foreclosures. So they literally shut them, like you weren't allowed to do a foreclosure, right, during the COVID era. And then on both sides of the fence, like I said, the news outlets were all saying that foreclosures have spiked. And what it was is they just allowed them to actually start happening again. It wasn't that they actually went crazy. I mean, in fact, you can see that foreclosures are not in an abnormal state. Actually, they're some of the lowest since 2005. But it was just the fact that they were totally not allowed to happen, right? A moratorium from the government to now we're going to allow the natural occurrence of foreclosures to take place, and that was a headline that took hold, and they ran with it. Because look, I don't blame anybody, but fear sells, and that's what we deal with a lot when it comes to the real estate world. People saying, "Oh my God, I'm not buying right now because foreclosures are spiking." So we have to have information like this to paint an accurate picture. It's an incredibly healthy foreclosure market, if you will, at the moment. So, any questions so far before we run through? I know Caleb's gonna do something. Anybody have any questions before we jump up?
I had a question about the large percentage of those who ended up paying off their homes.
Yeah.
We're seeing a larger percentage who own their home outright. On the residential side, is there more interest in those who are trying to sell and they have all this equity, but listings are taking a little bit longer? Is seller finance becoming more of like a favorable type of offer to get the price for those sellers who have all that equity trapped?
So I want to make sure I get the question right. So, are we seeing more owner financing deals take place today?
Yeah,
is that kind of
it's
what
becoming more common right now for sellers who have paid off homes, and is that like becoming a more attractive offer to give like higher prices to sellers?
I would say that it tends to be that people are willing to take an owner finance deal when the market gets worse in general for sellers.
Yeah.
A seller is more likely to, because taking the cash now is usually the best deal because the time value of money, they can invest it, they can, all of those reasons. So I wouldn't say that there's been an increase in owner financing deals take place recently. I would think that if we went back to like the 2010, 11 market, 12 market, a lot of owner financing deals were taking place because people were just trying to, stuff wasn't moving at all.
Yeah.
They're like, I'll give you an example of Portofino. Right now there's like 25 units on the market. When I first got into the business about 10 years ago, there was about 55 units on the market. 2010, there was 150.
Yeah.
Right? So people were doing anything they could do to get their property kind of moved off the books. So I hope that answers your question. I would say it's not, it still happens, but it's not as, I haven't seen a big uptick in that happening. Because the pendulum hasn't swung, it's kind of like, it was definitely a seller's market, right, during COVID, and it's swung back to the middle, and it's edged towards buyers, but it's not gone all the way, right? So it's probably like just across the line there on the buy side. So when you have ends of the spectrum, that's when you start to see the creative kind of financing stuff take more of a hold, I would say. Yeah.
It's also probably somewhat of a mindset shift as well, where the Fed started cutting rates, and as soon as they start cutting rates, it's like, okay, we're on a downward trajectory versus we're still stuck, like nothing's moving kind of thing.
No question. I mean, optimism, like you said, when interest rates start moving that direction, wage growth, and I'm going to take you through some of that as well. Wages start outpacing inflation, that kind of stuff, and it takes a while for people to feel that, right? But the data is starting to show that that's taking place, and I think that generally what we see, because I see the back end of what our realtors are doing and can see the numbers every day, the market is picking up.
Yep.
There's no question. It's not like flip a switch red hot, but it's moving in that direction. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. As far as like supply and demand, right? Everything. We have not, this is a big, as far as affordability, like I tell people that, do I think that the real estate market is on sound footing from a supply and demand side, from a value standpoint? Like, it would take a shock to the system, and typically it's what you don't see coming that really hurts you the worst. But I don't see something coming at this moment, knock on wood, that's gonna like hugely affect prices, up or down. I think you're gonna see more stable price increases, in the anywhere from the 2, depending on the micro market and what happens with this administration. If they do some unique financing offerings, buying back bonds that was just announced. The more of that kind of stuff, that can speed up the acceleration of appreciation. But I would say it's going to go back to more historical norms. So over the last 50 years, homes have tended to appreciate about 5% a year. I think that one of the reasons that we have, that is going to be the case is because there's not a ton of supply being added to the market, right? That's why I think it's going to drive homes slowly but steadily up in value. And it's right here, builders aren't overbuilding, they're catching up. So you can see when I talked about the exuberance of supply in the market, this was when, as far as condo building, spec home building, all of it, it was ramping up, and it got really crazy here. Because you got to remember, not only is this number much higher than this number, but there's also, demographically, there's just less people in the United States back then than there is right now. So in general, I would say that, if you really took it per capita, it was actually much higher than that, So that's something to always keep in mind. But the builders are not overbuilding, and it's become much harder. One of the reasons for that is, financing typically from community banks, right? Small banks. And a lot of the labor force that was in the game during this era, when it crashed, even if they weren't in their retirement stage, they just called it quits. They just said, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna ride this out, right? I'm just gonna either change career paths, or I'm just gonna hang it up at this point. So you had a lot of general contractors, subcontractors get out of the game, and you had a lot of the financing mechanisms and banks that also went down in that process. So affordability gets brought up a lot. No question is that an issue in this country. There's no question. That's a 3-pronged thing. It's wages compared to inflation. So are they going up faster than the inflation? It's the cost of the home, the purchase price. And then it's the interest rate, it's the cost of the money attached to it. So, fixing one doesn't necessarily fix the whole scenario. I think we've got to add supply. I think we've got to have lower interest rates. I think we've got to outpace inflation with our wage growth. So that's a whole different thing. There's some creative stuff too that we'll talk about, in the future. But Habitat for Humanity. There's a lot of different, organizations that are really focusing on affordability and helping people get into homes. But generally speaking, like broad stroke, it took a long time to get to this place. You're not going to get out of it quickly, right? So hopefully we march out of that. If you want to move on to the next one, this is interesting. Mortgage spreads, and this is due to, the mortgage rate is based on the 10-year treasury. And historically, it's been the spread between the 10-year treasury and the 30-year fixed mortgage is like 1.75. So it's typically right around kind of this range. We've been sitting much higher than that, and that's because of the debt, you know, the country's debt. It's because of international issues, right? All of these geopolitics, all of that kind of stuff affects the risk appetite, right? So I'm not saying it'll go back to normal. We may never go back to normal. I don't know what normal is anymore. But I can tell you that if it did go back to normal, 1.75 would put it just hit the 30-year fixed mortgage was just 5.99, right? I think a lot of you probably saw that. That was it got under 6, so people were jacked up. If the spread was in a normal position, you would have seen that number be like 5.75. So there's even with if the 10-year comes down, or let me put it this way, if the 10-year stays the same, but just the spread goes back to normal, you'll see lower interest rates. So there's a good chance that I think a little bit of both will happen, right? The 10-year treasury will keep coming down a little bit at a time, you know, bumping up and down, but bumping generally down, and this spread will tighten. So that's a crystal ball thing. Anybody that tries to predict interest rates usually gets, you know, hung up by their toenails. So you can see how much it's trended down. It doesn't go in a straight line, so I would anticipate, you know, you could see interest rates, if nothing changes, right, not materially, that you could see interest rates go back up to 6.25 before they go below 6 again, and then could go lower than that and then bump back up. So that tends to happen with interest rates. Before I move on, I don't want people's questions lingering, and then I want it interactive. So anybody have questions on what? Yeah.
Historically, I mean, over the last 60 or 70 years,
Yeah.
interest rates are about what they are now, average.
Yeah. No question.
The challenge is that we have been a little bit spoiled in the 2 to 3% range.
Yeah.
So when they spiked up, people were freaking out. I'm old enough to remember 15%.
Oh yeah, no question.
Yeah. So a lot of people look at the 6% and go, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And those of us that have been around for a while have said, "Oh yeah, that looks great."
Yeah. So to your point, 100%.
Perception.
Perception's reality.
Yep.
The lock-in effect is real, right? So when somebody has a 3%, they're drinking beers with their buddies or whatever, and they're like, "I'm not buying a 7%. I'm not gonna lock myself into 7%," right? Although, so that is true, that perception's reality, but also the reality is that prices have gone up abnormally fast.
Yeah.
And so the affordability thing becomes more of an issue as price goes up, you know? So there is a real sentiment that it's unaffordable, right? And so that plays into it as well. But I agree with you.
Part of it was driven by the low interest rates, kind of
Yeah.
like just before the crisis in 2008, when the non-performing or non-standard loans came out. You know, hey, if you walked in with a pulse, you'd get a loan.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if you qualified for it or anything. No docs,
question.
105% loans.
Yeah.
So, but a 6% interest shouldn't prevent somebody from buying unless, like you said, the affordability is just not there for them, because interest rates will drop eventually, and you can always refinance.
No question about
And
that.
during that time, you're building equity.
No, I mean, still the American dream is to own a home, you know, and to own real estate. It's been historically a great thing. I think it's going to continue to be a great thing. You know, one thing, and I didn't pull this because I didn't want to bombard Caleb with 1,000 slides, and make you guys go through all that. But one of the slides that I also share quite often is percentage of income that it takes to make the median monthly mortgage payment. And it's a lot different than my parents' generation and my grandparents, right? So to your point, like how inflation happens is it's just affecting the money supply.
Yeah.
So the more money that's out there, the less valuable it is. So, you know, some have argued it's not even that prices have gone up, it's just that there's more money out there, right? So, which is essentially the same thing. But bottom line is, you know, the prices, if you owned a home during the last 5 years, you killed that, right? I mean, your value didn't go up 5% a year. It went up like 10, 15. Some markets it went up, I think, 22% on some of the waterfront markets around here in 1 year. So you do that consecutive years, and you definitely start to price people because the wages
It's
didn't
compounding.
keep up with that.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, it didn't happen overnight how we got here. It won't be fixed overnight, but I do think, generally speaking, that I think that, you know, if you do a couple of these things, if you add supply to the market, one thing that's going for us in our area from an affordability standpoint is we have a lot of, like, if you take New Jersey, for example, New Jersey, there's like no land left to build, right? So it exacerbates the affordability crisis from a homeownership standpoint. You know, there's regulations on expanding your homes, on and on and on. So here we have a lot of vacant land. Me personally, now I'm getting preachy, but I would rather see high density than I would urban sprawl for a lot of reasons. I think our nature's beautiful. I don't want it all taken up, you know, all those kind of things. But also I think that it takes a lot of money to maintain roads and sewer and all that. So I'm hoping that we do more vertical than we do sprawl, but the cheap thing to do is sprawl. So we'll see about all that, but you know, if you just generally had to be excited about the fact that we can add supply to our market, I mean, we can. We've got a lot of vacant land. So I think we already have a more affordable market than almost anywhere in the country, like for waterfront communities. But when you look outward, I think that we're going to remain that way, even with all the cool stuff that's happening here. And I could go on all day long about like American Magic and Sail GP that just came and getting voted, you know, Pensacola Beach was voted #1 beach in the country by Condé Nast, and Navarre was just voted #2 on the same list. Orange Beach was number, like, I think 8 or something like that. So like on our little stretch of beaches, we competed against Hawaiian beaches and California beaches, and we're winning these awards. So I think the growth is going to continue, but I also think, I think there's going to be great appreciation, but I think there's going to be elements of our area that are going to remain affordable because of the ability to add supply in those markets. Now, from an investing standpoint, and we will get to this, I always tell people, if you can afford to get in and you're looking for appreciation, you want to go somewhere where you can't add supply. So, you know, you can take a look at the map, right? And we will. I'm going to pull this up for you. And there's specific markets that are constrained by land, like just water around them, whatever it may be. You know, I think some of you were in the room when my dad came and spoke about the uniqueness of our beaches, Pensacola Beach, Navarre, and Perdido, and the fact that they have a cap on supply in their own right. Pensacola Beach has a DCA cap. You can only build 4,120 livable units on the beach. Navarre has essentially it has a lease fee like Pensacola Beach. And so in order to change the density, you have to go to the state of Florida to change that. And then Perdido Key is interesting because it's not a lease, but it's a beach mice that prevents you from building in excess. So they only release a certain amount of density or new units. I think it's every 5 years for Perdido Key. So investing wise, there's a bunch of different investing types. You know, that's the beautiful thing about this world. Some people are looking for cash flow. Some people are looking for appreciation. Some people, it's a mix of all of that in personal use. But I would say from an appreciation standpoint, you want to go to where you can't add supply, right? So we'll go to the next one, Caleb, and eventually I'm going to show you the different zip codes in Pensacola and give you kind of a perspective on what areas are going to be constrained. Monthly mortgage payments, we kind of beat that up. They're marching down. They're not where they need to be, but they're marching down. Roll to the next one. Wages are climbing at a faster pace, starting to beat inflation. So, you know, like I said with that, that's going to take a while. Roll to the next one. This is interesting. These are nationwide numbers, but you know, 24. I think 23, 24 were the weakest years demand-wise. We don't have 23 represented here. Last year was still pretty tough, you know, but values didn't drop much, you know, on some condos that got hit hard. But like your average like $350,000 home, what actually happened, if you just could do a broad stroke, is in Pensacola, at least, Escambia, Santa Rosa County, is it went up like 3%, you know, something in that range, kind of went up with inflation. But it looks like demand is gonna pick up. And this is from, just so you know, this isn't us making up stuff. This is projections from Fannie Mae, MBA, and National Association of Realtors. So we'll roll to the next one. This is you know, these reputable sources, right? Everybody's got their own opinion on which one of these or if any of them are reputable, but the quote unquote experts are predicting that values go up in this next year. I think that these nationwide numbers, the average could be low, because I think whether you like them or not, this current administration knows that it's how you win a midterm election. So I think you're gonna see unique things come out with housing over the next month, something like that. Whether it's further bonds and quantitative easing taking place from Freddie and Fannie, which helps with interest rates, or they floated all kinds of stuff, but like portable mortgages. So you take the remainder of your mortgage, if it's at 3.5%, and you could transfer that over to the next property. Now, logistically, I don't know how any of that works. I don't know how any of that works. But I will say that they're floating a lot of stuff, and they know it's so important to getting, you know, election wins and positivity in the overall environment, that I think something is going to happen. And there are some levers that they could do, i.e. the quantitative easing thing. So at a minimum, that's going to happen at an accelerated rate, I believe. Therefore, I think maybe you'll see higher than this 1.7 number. So now to Pensacola. And Caleb, any way you could scoot it this way just so they can see the end of this chart? Thank you. Yeah.
That better?
Yeah. So perspective, one thing that I like to show people is you know, average amount of homes for sale. So this is the inventory levels that are online. You know, once again, I watched, you know, both sides of the fence on the news. They said that, you know, the amount of supply has drastically increased. It has, from a crazy abnormal time, right? Not normal, COVID. So yeah, it's definitely gone up, but is it in wacky territory? It's not. It's, you know, if we march out here, it's in the 2016 to 18 range as far as the number of homes that are for sale, which when I was, you know, in 2017, 18, people thought the real estate market was incredible, right? Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown between new homes and existing homes on that?
I don't for the general 2-county area, but you'll see that I did every zip code, and I actually, for 2025, I did every zip code, and I broke down how much of it was new construction versus existing resale properties. So
I think that's critical in
yeah.
this group.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it should point you in the right direction. There's a couple things that you're going to want to look at on those slides. One of them's price point. It's hard to make and Caleb, you know this better than I do, really, that it's hard to make a property cash flow when you get to a certain price point, right? So if you're looking for that, then you're going to be looking for the average price point in the marketplace. If you're looking for, you know, a cash flowing property that's going to also appreciate, right? You want it all because you're greedy, which I love. Then you're going to look for the market that is, or the sub area that has the price point. Obviously, you got to crunch the numbers with the cash flowing property, but also has a lack of ability to add new construction to it. So, or some other feature to it, a good school system, whatever it may be. But yes, I have some breakdown of new construction versus existing. But this just paints you a picture that inventory levels are not whacked out. So we'll roll to the next one. Days on market. It stings as a realtor when you're used to selling a house in 30 days and you're having to have tough conversations with the seller 180 days later, right? We're not there, right? So 180 days will be up here. But
It feels like it.
it feels like it when you go from, oh, it's been on the market a week and we've got multiple offers and that was crazy. So we're hovering around like the 75 to 85 days on market range. Of course, that is not what you see when you look on Zillow. You see all the homes that are probably overpriced. You know, if they're priced correctly, they move. And in this market, and I don't blame anybody. It's your home. You know, it's your decision. We work for you, right, as realtors. So if you want to list where you think it should be, that's your prerogative, by all means. But I would say that we still have a lot of sellers in that mindset of like, well, I'm not going to go down 5% from what you know 2 years ago was, right? The market's been going like this. But if I could roll back the slides, and I'm not asking Caleb to do this, you'd see that we went up 60% in 5 years, right? So taking a 5% hit, you see what I'm saying? So I think it's psychological, a lot of like the overpricing for the market has to do with the fact that people are used to it going up and they're unwilling to come down. And the reason they're unwilling to come down is because most people don't have to, because they've got so much equity in their home and they've been conservative with their finances. We'll roll to the next one. Months of supply is another indicator. So we're, you know, about, since I pulled this, right, it's probably gone up, you know, a little bit. So I would just say generally we're at 6 months supply, which is about a balanced market. We'll roll to the next one. Price per square foot. You know, here you go, right? So I talked about that it's kind of gone flat. Maybe it's appreciated a little bit. It's marched up, but it's not doing this anymore. All right, we're gonna roll to the next one. So now we're gonna get into like the individual zip codes. And so we'll jump in here. So 32577. So you're right there, right? Or where are you?
Yeah, we're at
You're somewhere right here, okay? 32577. And I did this for our realtors, so opportunity zones, right? So that's the amount of volume done in that zip code in 2025. Average price point, number of sides, so there's a buy and a sale side. So I've made these slides geared towards realtors, but I think it works for anybody, really. 5.9 months of supply. This is the percentage of the total Escambia Santa Rosa market. So it's a small piece of Santa Rosa. But I think this is probably the most impactful. These two, these two data points are the most impactful things that, as an investor, I would look at. What's the price point in that area? What's the percentage of size that were resale? And so I did properties, so 95% of properties that sold in this market had a year built of before 2024. So if it was 2020, so it was before 2024. So if it was a 2024 home or a 2025 home, it would be in that 5%. And the reason I did 2024 is because some spec homes have sat on the market longer. So I wanted to absorb all of the new construction. So it's not a perfect science here, but a big chunk of that market is resale. You can roll to the next one. 32571. This is the pace, right?
Yep.
Pace market, yeah. 334 million. So we went from 15 million to 334 million. Less months of supply, right? So 3.6. It's 10% of the total inventory sold in Pensacola. But look at this, 59% were existing homes that sold. So a big old chunk of the inventory that sold in this market was new construction. So it's not that you can't have great appreciation in that market.
Yeah.
You just have to be
Yellow
very
rubber matches in
cognizant
the
of where you
backyard.
buy.
Yeah, it's massive.
Because if you are next to
They're built
DLSD, an Adams Home, a DR Horton subdivision, whatever it may be, and they fill a void, and they're, there's an argument to be made that they're incredible for the market. But I would say that you don't want to compete with them if you're going to flip a home, if you're going to sell a home, because they have to move product. They're a publicly traded company, not Adams, right? Not DLSD, but DR and Lennar, and so they have to move product, right? These companies don't function if they don't move product, so they are they're gonna buy the rate down and beat you out. They're gonna, if they make $30,000 off a house, and that eats you alive, right? They're focused. They're not bad people. They're just focused on selling their product. So they're gonna beat you for the most part because they've got scale of building, right? So that's what I would just generally say is this is a big component of what I would be looking out for, and checking, right, when I'm looking to buy in a neighborhood. Is there a phase 2 of a new construction thing going on? We can roll to the next one. 32533, 255 million, price point of 350, months of supply. Once again, another market that has a considerable amount of new construction. We'll roll to the next one. And you guys, Caleb, you give this to everybody, right? Yeah, okay. Now you take 32506. Okay, so 32506 is unique. I think it's overlooked in a lot of ways. Look at the price point. Look at the percentage that was resale. Look at the months of supply. I think that it's consistent, right? Because a lot of people, I could totally be wrong on this, but I would imagine a lot of military clientele.
A ton. Yeah.
So I would say that you're going to end up with, there's consistency. Typically, well, eat my words, right? The government shuts down. But typically,
They're bringing in.
the government pays, right? And so there's good, healthy turnover of people and renters and all those types of things. And the price point's still great. And it's south, so you really can't, like in these parts of the market, anything above these kind of regions, tons of country, beautiful. I love it the way it is. But it's, I mean, if things continue in the way that they are, it's going to be subdivision, 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 like it or not, right? It's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? And what that means is that you're protected in a lot of ways down here for your property going up in value. So a hidden gem to me is 32506. 32507. It's one of the bigger zip codes as far as volume in the whole area. 90% were resale. I mean, that has a lot to do with the fact that that's just been like, the further south you go, you'll notice that they were the first to be built out, right? So you're also going to see less new construction. But the price point, there's incredible buys in every market. There's unique places and there's buy opportunities. But generally speaking, I would say you're going to pay a lot more to be in that zip code. So, all right, 32505. Yep, I think this is also kind of a sneaker market. You know, this whole corridor right here is going to be, where is it, Caleb? The I-10 overpass. I'm not saying that right. The Hollis T. Williams going into downtown.
No, it's kind of on the edge of it.
Yeah. Essentially, there's a lot of, like, downtown's so hot that in the city of Pensacola is doing such a good job attracting, I think, people. More people are going to want to live there. More businesses are going to want to live there. And I think this whole zone, I think, is going to, you know, win from that. Now,
what do you think? 10 years, 15? I mean, like, we've been flipping in those areas. Like half this room probably has, thinking that it was going to gentrify faster than it has been.
Yeah.
I could say, how many houses have you had broken into in 32505? Enough material stolen to build a house, probably.
Yeah. Well, no, there's no question. I think that there's going to be, I guess what I would say is, if I had to answer that, I'd probably own 100 homes in there. No, but I think there's no crystal ball. I just think the proximity to downtown makes it such that it's inevitable. Like if you take the somewhat controversial Baptist property, right? That's not in that zip code, right? But it is right here, roughly. Something's going to happen with that. That's going to positively impact, likely, that whole general area. And, you know, any other city, and we take longer to get rocking and rolling than you'd think, right? With how beautiful naturally our areas, you would have thought we could have been on pace with a St. Pete or any of those others, right? But in essence, any other city, that proximity to the city, you know, what is that, a 6, 7 minute, 8 minute drive to downtown, it becomes very desirable very fast. So I don't know if that's gonna happen. I would say hang on. If I could give you advice, hang on and keep buying.
Wild ride.
Yeah, it is a wild ride. Not that there's not other markets that may develop faster. What's something interesting now that we're talking about that general vicinity is, I think that there's enough vacant land downtown. There's going to be enough outside money coming in. If I had to pick a general market, I would say that you're going to have a lot of competition coming to downtown. Like as far as rentals go, like look at the amount of apartments coming downtown. I don't think that's going to stop. I really don't. I think DC, occasionally I'll talk to him briefly, and he was mentioning that like he goes to these mayoral kind of conferences, and that we have more in our downtown per area. We have more vacant land than almost any city that he comes across, and that's like a metric for how much opportunity there is for outside investment. There's a lot of opportunity there, but if it's going to be hard to compete, I would think, with those, because when they have to lease out a whole 225 unit apartment complex with a rock climbing wall and an indoor pool and a dog run and a barista downstairs, your C-class level rental is going to struggle more, right? When they're incentivized to fill that. So, anyways, that's just my 2 cents. I hope I'm not getting anybody in trouble here, but. All right, we'll roll to the next one.
So sorry.
Same thing, just take be cognizant of this when you re-look at these slides. We'll roll to the next one. I think this is also an incredible area. Really, 32504 and 32514 are interesting to me. They're already built out. They've been built out. I think, you know, a lot of the homes are older, but I think they're going to start to become renovated as Pensacola grows. I think they're going to be renovated. I think the college is going to add a lot because the college is at UWF, PSC. They're all growing very fast, and there's a big push towards to bring back kind of the sailing thing that we talked about. So what's Pensacola known for? It's known for tourism. It's known for, we've got a good healthcare system. We've got the military in the area, cybersecurity and aerospace engineering and aquatic, like naval engineering is now an element to it. And I don't know if anybody saw the Triumph funds. There's a board that deals with the BP oil spill money. And Rick Harper, who was the professor at UWF, head economist for our area for a long time, is the head of that Triumph board. And the city of Pensacola just applied for ship manufacturing at the port of Pensacola. And it'd be 2,000 jobs above 70,000. So that's huge. You take like the overall area of Pensacola and you look at the number of jobs that are 70,000 plus, that's a big instant hit, right? So I think between that and the sailing thing that's coming our way, and I just think that there's going to be a lot of people making good money. I think that the colleges are going to, and they're already starting to open programs that train up, like STE engineering, the hangars at the airport, the naval engineering, and then also there's there's a lack of blue collar workers in the United States in general, right? So they've added at PSC and UWF kind of trade school elements. So I think you're going to have an influx of people coming in trade school wise to the college, our colleges. So all that is a really long-winded way to say that I think these areas are also going to thrive. It used to be that the center point of Pensacola was, somewhere down here. Well, everybody says now the center point of Pensacola is 9 Mile Road. And you can see it if you drive up and down 9 Mile Road, how much growth. So I like that area as well. I like the price points, I like the resale, or the percentages of the size. All right, we'll roll into the next one. This is the Cordova, East Pensacola Heights, and East Hill zone. Obviously desirable, big price points, very little new construction, so it's a great market. It's a great market. It's not like, it's not a market that's hidden though, in any way. So I don't think you're gonna get any, it's still hard to find like absolute steals, like no brainer, knock you over the head, it's so good, how could you pass it up, right? Today you're lucky if you're gonna find a little bit better than even like fair market deal, if you get, bottom line is what I'm saying is, I think in East Hill, you're paying fair market value for the most part. If you find a sneaker, then that would be incredible. All right, we'll roll into the next one. Downtown, I kind of took you through that. 8.3 months of supply. That's interesting to me. So stuff isn't moving that fast downtown. 533,000. I just believe that buying downtown, if it's a passion play and it's a lifestyle play, for sure. But as far as, and I think there can be some great appreciation. Like we just sold out of the Tristan development, right? And it was priced super competitively, like pre-construction. Most pre-construction projects aren't actually priced like pre-construction used to be, right? It used to be a deal. And now people are pre-selling at what the fair market value is, even though you gotta wait 2 years for this product. That was sold at a pre-construction good value. It sold in 30 days, or it sold in 3 days. Okay, so when it's priced right, it sells. But generally speaking, I would say that when the market turns back on, and I think it will, you have the opportunity to build, it won't happen overnight, but 2,000 condos downtown. And there will be outside money that comes in and builds. And when you have outside money that comes in and builds condos, or any supply, like we've talked about, you go up with the replacement value. Whereas when you're in an area that can't add supply, you go up faster than the replacement value. Any questions on any of that? No? 32501, great market. So yeah, I just want you guys to have these slides. You can look at them in further detail where you're thinking about. Obviously, your realtor can dig further. I mean, these zip codes are massive, right? So even within a zip code, the neighborhood, you can pull this kind of information, right? So, all right, we'll roll to the next one. The beach market. The beach has been, I'm biased. I think you guys probably know that, but beach markets are cyclical because they're not mandatory for the most part. They're not mandatory housing, right? It's not your $375,000 primary resident. Look, there are people that primarily or do full-time residency on the beach, but you have a lot more percentage-wise rentals and true second homes. So when interest rates go up, when people get freaked out, they offload that property, right? When discretionary income goes down and people are spending less to vacation, rental numbers go down, it affects the beach. The beach has been kicked in the teeth. I say that prices have gone down mainly on, I would say, well, just let's call it across the board 5% over the last 2 years, okay? Is that a huge deal when you went up 60%? Maybe more than that, because there were micro markets that outpaced that national average. So it probably went up above 60%. I think that the reasons why it didn't are all the same things I talked about. Is like we softened the blow with the supply demand thing, right? People didn't have to sell. But I do think that my crystal ball says that insurance is starting to get settled out. I know that it's crazy, but, and there's good and bad to everything, but the changes that they made at the state legislature to basically make it harder to sue the insurance companies are drawing more insurance companies back into Florida. And we went from like 4 or 5 insurance companies at the worst, and now we're up to like 15, I think, and it's growing every year because it's now profitable to be back in Florida, and it wasn't. And so, love them or hate them, you do need them, because in order to have a loan on a house, you gotta have insurance, right? So it's stabilized. You were seeing increases in insurance of like 20%, 40% a year, 50% a year. It's gone, and now it's like going sideways in a lot of cases. So it's kind of similar to like affordability. We didn't get here overnight, so it's not gonna be fixed overnight, but the insurance thing should be, premiums should be stabilizing. And I think the beach is gonna come back in a pretty decent way. So I think that there's still some really good opportunities at the beaches. And that goes not just for Pensacola. Navarre's killer, Perdido Keys killer, Orange. I mean, really our stretch, right, is amazing. I can't. Yeah, 32563. I can't say enough good things about, like, 32563 and 32566 are amazing when I look at them, because they're constrained. Very easy to tell that they're constrained by supply. Like you're surrounded by water, you're on a peninsula, safe, schools, the schools are incredible, and you just can't add. They're not gonna it's very unlikely they're gonna do condos up and down Highway 98, right? So it's single family, and you know, therefore I think you're gonna see massive appreciation in those markets. Are you gonna roll to the next? This zip code in particular is, I think, it's got the most new construction.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's where I live.
That's DR
Well,
Oregon, right?
and we've done some spec home building ourselves, and we got tore up pretty good in the zip code. So it's part of it. But Avalon, and it's beautiful, right? Avalon and East Milton, massive amounts of land, especially in East Milton. So that's where the builder's gonna go, because they can get a lot for $20,000 or whatever it may be, $25,000, and that gets them into the price point that they're comfortable with. But then if you're trying to sell your home, somebody can buy a brand new construction with incentives.
Yeah.
So it makes it tough. All right, we'll roll to the next one. Yeah, same thing. You know, it's natural, right? The further north you go, the more the new construction exists. And then, I mean, this zip code's insane. So Truman and I talk about it. Caleb and I talk about it all the time. Like, it looks like a big zip code, but all of this is military base.
Yeah.
So it's literally this rectangle here is Navarre, and I don't see how, I mean, it's on fire. So I think appreciation wise, I think it's an incredible place.
The thing that
32526, this is go ahead.
when you pull from par, you miss all the e-car sales because so that's where your numbers may be even a little bit off. from that
Correct.
factor.
That's a great point, and we've been talking to eCar, we've been talking to them quite a bit, trying to get a better sense of how to like get those numbers correct. For me, like, and for our agents, having that, because for anybody who's not in the real estate world, like selling real estate, basically there's an imaginary line about like right here where agents use one system over here and the other system over here. It's kind of crazy, but it is what it is. And so a lot of agents that make sales here put it in this system, and a lot of agents that make sales here, you know, and they crisscross the border all the time. So anyways, basically to your point, I think the 32566 numbers are probably even low. I think this is probably more like in the could be in the 350 range, 325 range. But I love it because, you know, similar to like, you take Gulf Breeze proper here, the city of Gulf Breeze, you know, direct access to the beach, right? And the number one amenity for most people, right? You're either like a beach person or a mountains person or whatever. So the number one amenity, Rick Harper will tell you, that we have, and I love downtown and I love all the restaurants and all that kind of stuff, but the number one reason people move here is the beach. Even if they never go, just the fact that they have a palm tree in their backyard and they said, I moved to the beach, right? And there's a lot of people like that. This community is literally, you know, the furthest away you are in Navarre from sitting on the beach is, you guys tell me.
12 minutes max.
12
Yeah, it
minutes.
was in 10 minutes. I'm 20 minutes and I'm up in East Milton.
Yeah, so I
You need to slow
think
down.
that market like this is gonna be 700. I think it's
I
gonna
don't
be
plan to
700.
jet.
Yeah, I think the only factor that's going to keep that price lower would be if the military can't keep up on their housing rates, because that's such a large market for housing. Everybody's already priced out of Fort Walton Beach, or they don't want to buy a 60 center block house.
Yeah.
And so Navarre is kind of your tertiary market for over and England.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I hope that doesn't happen. But if that does happen, like let's say I think there's a chance that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, there could be a massive amount of military living here.
If they put in that bypass through the range to get to Hurlburt, what they've talked about for 10 years, I think you'll see more people moving up north.
Yeah.
For sure. Because they're talking about cutting across the range straight to Herbie to bypass 98.
Like up here.
Oh, that would be sweet.
Yeah, so cutting across the military range to because, I mean, I live in
For
32563 right by the bridge, right? And it takes me 45 minutes in the morning to get to Hurlburt.
Yeah.
It takes me 30 minutes to get to Pensacola, and it's a 2-mile difference, gate to gate.
Yeah.
Just the congestion there
Yeah.
from what you have. So the base commander now is saying that that's his top priority at Hurlburt, and that was originally the conversation when I was stationed there was cutting across the military range where it's not an active bomb range. It's just a training area, putting a road through there that you could drive through to get to the back, like building a back gate at Herbie.
Like there's an active bomb range.
Yeah,
Look, I hear them all the time.
that whole entire area is
Boom, 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 boom. It's
and what's
Eglin Air
crazy
Force
is they
Base.
let me go out there when they're trying to kill me. They're dropping bombs, but I'm
Yeah.
out there in a canoe.
It's like boom, 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 boom,
You
boom,
live
boom,
here long
boom.
enough, it's your sound machine. It's
Yeah.
boom, boom,
It's the
boom.
sound of freedom.
Yeah.
32583, you also have the concept of where 90 is coming through downtown Milton.
Yeah.
They're trying to widen that whole thing so
Yeah.
that you're gonna have your Whiting Field people living in your 32583 as well.
Oh yeah.
And then some people are coming out of Crestview even over in the 32583 as well.
Look, I do think that if we go back, can we go back to 8.3?
A
Yeah.
lot of new stuff out there.
So I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan of Milton. Actually, like most communities don't have, like a downtown Milton has historic charm, history. It's cool, right? Like most people don't even know about Milltown, right? Lumber was a massive part of our area. Longleaf pine, all this kind of stuff.
But
And
you
then,
get the politics in there.
yeah, no, it's good and bad, but there's definitely some uniqueness to the downtown, right? In that if it just takes one Quint Studer that came, downtown to stir the pot, I think it just takes one or two people to come into Milton. It's on the waterfront, right? It's got cool historic buildings. I think Milton is amazing. So, I just right now, like, do I think that this is an incredible area to live? I do, but from an appreciation standpoint, you're going to be competing with so much new construction for the next, 5 to 10 years, that I think maybe longer. But yeah, I think that becomes problematic. But like everything, within that big old zip code, there's little sections that there's pockets to buy.
In the 32583, I do Meals and Wheels out there. So you have your blocks of your rundown mobile homes, and then you have your people that have the 5 acres with the rundown mobile homes that are getting bought up by the newer mobile home communities, and they're parceling it out and they're putting in newer mobile homes. So you also have that to contend with.
Oh, yeah.
32583.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what makes that challenging from, but a lot of investors, it's all about cash flow.
Yep.
Right? So,
If you look at the economy of the employability of 32583,
Yep.
it's just the lower income scenario compared
Yeah.
to this.
there's some unique things though going, like to speak on this, like there's some industrial parks
Off of 87.
that are going in, and I think that there's gonna further, like with all this stuff taking place, manufacturing of like for instance at the port
Yep.
and the nautical engineering, like that, not all of that can take downtown. That's gonna need off-site ancillary to infill.
And Whiting's got its agreements with helicopter stuff that's going on at that same, like you said, the 87,
Yeah.
87, 98, 90 next year.
Yeah. No, so look, if you just had to say, like, are you bullish on Pensacola? I'm fired up. I mean, I think the next 10, 15 years in this town is gonna be insane. So, do I think you could pick, generally speaking, if you picked, took a dart and you threw it on this map, in this kind of general area, I would say preferably, for me, here, because there's gonna be less competition. But if I could throw a dart, and if you wait 20 years, I think you're gonna look like a hero, right? Because there's no chance to me with how naturally beautiful we are, how cheap we still are compared to the rest of the country, all of these things, I don't think we stay anywhere close to where we're at. So I think it's going to grow in a massive way. But, you know, there are winners, there are areas that are going to win faster in this market. And I would generally say that if you're looking for appreciation, just avoid competing with a bunch of new supply. And that's all that I try to display really with these slides is hey, maybe you should take a look at this zip code and maybe go a little bit further in that zip code. I think that's it, you guys. Oh, I won't bore you with all this, but I definitely took you through the different, the number of sales in these different categories.
I want to be the bow slip guy.
Whole.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just recently moved here not too long ago or whatever, but people like you're saying, like the new builds and stuff in some of the areas.
Yep.
Versus, homes that people are, trying to sell, say if you're paying like 30, 40 grand extra on a new build.
Yep.
Would you recommend like, hey, you can work out something and with a builder and find a new build, and would that still be more beneficial than trying to, buy?
So you mean if they're coming, like, are you saying you already have a new build and they're offering a second phase?
Yeah, just saying like, like say this house is 300 grand right here, but these new builds are at 320, 330,
Oh yeah.
Like, is it more beneficial, to actually just go ahead and purchase these new builds and rent them out for say 10, 20 years or whatever?
Yeah.
Than, sitting here and trying to buy something, that's 30 grand less right now that's used type thing.
Yeah, I would say this, it depends 100% on your goal. If your goal is monthly payment and cash flow, a lot of the new construction could work just fine, right? And for a lot of people, actually, because of the affordability issue, and most people aren't even thinking about appreciation really. They're like, how do I get into a freaking home, stop paying rent? How do I afford this monthly payment, right? And new construction fills that void all day long. I would say, like, if you give me the option of buying $30,000 less versus the new, that's a hard thing to just off the cuff say, right? What's the better scenario? I would say I would look at the expenses, how much maintenance it's going to be, all of those things would factor in, and then how much more desirable is it going to be from a rental standpoint. One thing that I would definitely, kind of going back to the theme of this, is like, let's say that there's a DLSD subdivision, right? And it's being built here, and there's 225 homes. And it's surrounded with existing properties, resale properties, right? And I look on the map and I do my research, and my realtor helps me like figure out that, hey, there's no new construction that can be added anywhere close to this new construction subdivision. The next new construction subdivision would have to be out here, right? So there are pockets where new construction subdivisions snuck in and found like the last remaining piece of land. That would be where I'd want to buy for new construction, as opposed to buying into a new construction where like just out the back of the neighborhood is another 400 acres where they're going to do phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and you're going to be for the next 10 years of your life dealing with buy downs and washers and dryers are given away, and somebody's, that's tough, but.
What are your thoughts about all the new construction around the Soundside High School, that whole area?
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, like kind of to the point I was making about having, buying into new construction where they can't add anymore, that's prime example.
Pretty locked.
Yeah, it's locked and loaded. Like that zone right there, that peninsula, Gulf Breeze, 32561, 63, 32566. That zone's hard to go wrong in. Like I would literally throw a dart at it, and I think you're gonna. If you buy a fair deal today, you're gonna win. I don't see how you don't win. The high school there is incredibly nice, and I think that there's maybe like, I would say maybe like another 1,000 homes that can be built along that whole stretch, and that's it. If I'm just rounding out.
Is there any commercial construction that's planning on going in any of that area? I mean, it's all zone commercial, but like we need more commercial to really benefit the amount of residential that can come in.
Typically how that goes is the people come first and the commercial comes second. So I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing school subdivisions come in, infill lots, right, and these established neighborhoods be built on.
Yeah.
And 98 is going to keep getting built out, and I think it'll be a combination of strip centers, individual standalone businesses, apartments,
Car washes.
Ronnie's.
Ronnie's and
Yeah.
Sefco's.
Yeah, somebody go get a loan from Ronnie. That dude is killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really hoping for a couple more mattress places too.
Mattress.
They're laundering money.
Storage.
They have to.
That is insane.
Oh, no.
There's anybody in there except for me and my kids, and they're jumping everywhere.
There's another project in Santa Rosa, Jubilee, that's gonna be up off of Berry Hill.
Yeah,
Where
that.
you're gonna have, it's Jubilee, FL online, so you can watch what's going on with the
Yeah.
project itself.
That has been talked about for a long time.
It's starting to get a little more
Is it?
attention
Okay.
recently. Yeah, I heard from Wayne at Community Bank that some.
Oh yeah,
stuff
he's a
is-
nice guy, super nice guy.
Stuff is kicking again.
Yeah,
It's a project to watch.
no question. So, and if you go back, we'll show everybody where this Jubilee project is. I want to say,
It's off of Berry Hill,
so it's like, isn't it like up here?
Yeah.
Right here, somewhere in that zone. It's like it's a ton of acreage, and it's like it's a very beautiful subdivision that, as far as the renderings go, we'll see if it materializes in that way. But if it ever gets built, it's got like parks, and I want to say it's kind of its own entity in a
Want
way.
to know what it's gonna look like, just go to Trinity, Florida, it's down by Tampa.
Oh yeah,
It-
yeah, they modeled it off
I
that.
saw Trinity do what Jubilee is intending to do.
Yeah.
Do you think we're gonna kind of be a little bit like the Tampa market, where I mean, obviously our downtown's not gonna ever probably be that big. We don't have the ability to, but
Yeah.
with how spread out Tampa has become, with like its little pockets of developments and HOAs that are kind of their own communities. I mean, do we have that capability going north?
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if I could pull up Google Maps, and it would be easier to see. But I think one of the reasons why I think it's hard to say that we're gonna do better than Tampa. Tampa's killed it, right?
Yeah, I'm just meaning like a mini Tampa even.
But once again, I'm biased. I think we are.
The internet
There's
sucks
a
here.
chance to do extremely well, and because of this, like if you're able to pull up satellite imagery, and I always go back to supply and demand, right? Because if you have 100 people fighting over a Snickers, how much are they willing to pay for that Snickers? Somebody's gonna pay $150,
I got fine.
right? So I think if you look at if you zoom in just a hair here.
I'm trying. I got very shitty internet here. Okay.
Yeah, okay, here we go. So look at these watersheds. You see all this going up here? So it's hard to tell because it's kind of blurry, but essentially you can see that this is a lot of water. It's a lot of like, I think it's Perdita River, isn't it? Okay, so Perdita River, Escambia River, you've got Blackwater and Coldwater Creek,
Yellow River.
Yellow River right here. So unlike some metropolitan areas, which can just sprawl, we are also constrained in a way. So to me, from an appreciation standpoint, like, look, that has prevented some of our growth. Some of the reason we haven't done a Tampa thing is because of that. But also moving forward, as the rest of Florida is built out, like people are gonna start, and that's what they've been doing. They get on Zillow and they look around and they're like, oh my gosh, gosh, I can buy a house here with these beaches, with this downtown for 325. What in the world? So you have people starting to, because of technology, because of these awards we're winning, be exposed to our area, and we have all of this. You're getting squeezed in between these watersheds, and so to me, that just means it's like buying into here, right? It's incredibly powerful because you can't add any more supply.
It's like
Buying into here, you know, look at how little land is actually there. So
it's like,
you know,
if this area wasn't just one big pocket of wetlands, it could be like
Yeah.
so perfect to build.
Oh,
on,
yeah,
but you'd
it'd
have to
be-
build 20 feet in the air.
it'd be worth you. Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, the military took all of the best land in Pensacola, right? So they took all of this, and then if you scroll over here,
Yeah.
where downtown probably naturally would have gone
Right here.
is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the base. In this area, Perdido Key just feels like the country. There's like nothing there yet.
Yeah.
Well, and that has to do with water.
Yeah.
So it's so low lying in all of
Yeah.
these areas. Like when you look on the map, there's a reason. Yeah. So if it's green like this, it's usually it's because it's swampy. It's you know that high water table, whatever. And then like look at Baldwin County is insane. The amount it's the fastest growing county in Alabama, and they just expanded the port of Mobile, and with this whole initiative to build ships back in the United States, they're doing just like they're going after shipbuilding at the port of Pensacola. Well, Mobile's already set up for it like big time. So there's going to be massive amounts of jobs in Mobile, and that's going to spill over into because like people tend to. Like already, if you work in Mobile, a lot of people live in Fairhope and Daphne and Spanish Fort.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see, I think you're gonna see.
Is that all going to connect eventually? 20 years down the road?
Oh, for sure. I think so. But I also think you have to recognize, like, from an investment standpoint, like I think this is amazing. People are gonna be able, builders are gonna build tons of homes, and it's gonna be affordable. But from an appreciation standpoint, like when you see all of this, this looks like North Pace, J, right? You see farm, right? Agriculture land.
Yeah.
That's perfect for builders. So you're gonna have a ton of new construction in this zone.
Yeah, if
So-
farmers retire, they just sell their land off, or their kids sell their land off.
Yeah, they're gonna. I mean, a lot of people own 50 acres out here, and they're just like, you know what? Somebody just offered me $3 million. I think we're getting an RV.
Honey, we're going to Orange Beach.
Yeah, or we're
Going to the beach.
or whatever. So
Hitting the mountains.
I think you're gonna see a ton of that in here, but you will see all of this connect, but it won't be in the contiguous way that you see some other communities do because of these watersheds.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind. You know, if you took one thing away from this, I think it's generally that if you have your choice, if you can get something that gets close to cash flow, somewhere close to cash flow. If you get something that's cash flowing, great. I mean, I see a lot less of that these days, but if you can get something close to that, and you can get something where there can't be supply at it, I think over the next 10 years, I think you win in a massive way here. So. Any other questions? Yeah.
From what you just said, like even on the Soundside area, that's where I live, like Soundside Drive. Or whatever.
Yeah.
But the school's gonna build, they're building those like little, townhomes and all that stuff at what, 300,000 or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Do you recommend, like, say, hey, go ahead and buy those things now, and not cash flow, as far as that goes, as long as it pays for itself. Do you recommend buying those, or would you recommend going and buying like? Because you can still find $350,000 houses that need a little bit of work, but you can do the work type thing.
I think in that particular scenario, I would probably go towards the new construction because it can start instead of having to fix it. So time is money, right? So you can finance the new construction, but you got to maybe take a construction loan out, or you're paying cash to fix up the house. So I think they're also doing a lot of rate buy downs. So like some of these are, you tell me, what are they getting the industry done?
I sold one in the neighborhood right next to the high school recently. They got $10,000. They got $1,000 back at closing, which was their earnest money, a full move-in package, and a 4.99 interest rate
In those townhomes right there?
in those townhomes.
Insane. So I
It's
mean,
right across from the pool.
for 325, like you and I don't know about you, man. I can't figure out how to build for that little.
Yeah.
Like they have so much scale because they'll get a subcontractor, they'll get a plumber, and they'll say, hey, you got work for 3 years with us, you know, and then they give him, obviously the plumber and his, you know, crews are like, consistent work, let's do this. They give him a much better price. So in that particular scenario, because you can't add a ton, like if there's new construction and there's these incentives today in 32563 in Navarre, like I'm trying to snatch them up. Yeah, if the numbers crunch.
Yeah. My business partner's the most frugal, cheapest data analysis guy you'll ever meet, and he actually thought about buying one, so it's gotta be a good deal.
Yeah.
But at 300,000, you also negative cash flow property.
I mean, depends on your interest rate, right? You'd have to be living in it for a year and then turn it into a rental, and you could potentially cash flow. But you're gonna see, I think, in that zip code, you're gonna see appreciation. Like you said, if you're buying in pace and you planned on renting it out later, I would steer you because it's legal. I would tell you not to.
Yeah.
Everybody in Orange Beach is the same exact scenario. His buying like all of them, you know.
Yeah, then you control your own market.
Yeah.
Much as I'd love to.
And look, I mean, you know, my dad has invested in a lot of real estate and done well, but it wasn't the cash flow model, right? His has been mainly appreciation. You know, so there's everything in between from that to simply cash flow to like, you know, it gets close and it appreciates, right? So you've got to figure out what your kind of niche is in this investment world. But I would say what you lack in cash flow, in those properties, you'll likely gain or more in appreciation. So it's all dependent upon what you can swallow, right?
You have to remember too that cash flow isn't static.
Yeah.
Next year the rent's going up.
Yeah,
The year after it's going up.
for sure. Yeah. And I think as that score gets established and
Insurance.
I think, you know,
Or goes down.
look, there's gonna be competition. I'm not sitting here telling you that there's not gonna be some competition from a rent standpoint down Highway 98. I mean, there's still a bunch of linear footage on 98 that can, where there can be apartments built. But they're two different clienteles, right? And so somebody who's willing to live in an apartment, somebody who's willing to live in a townhome, someone who's willing to live in a single family home. So I think that, yes, it puts downward pressure on rents when you add supply of apartments, but I think a lot of people won't live in an apartment and will want a townhome, right? So I think that they're just generally speaking, there's not gonna be a lot of additional townhomes added. So I think it's as safe as an investment as you can make. I think 32563, and I think those right next to the school, I mean, I think they're good.
I know earlier about one.
With the mass migration to Florida,
Yeah.
do you have any numbers on that? Isn't it like 3 million people have moved here since 2020 into Florida?
So there's the migration mapper, and that is on. Well, we can get you. It's on our website, on our internal Facebook, or not Facebook, LRR Connect.
Okay.
So you can find.
So those are people with usually with money that are buying decent homes.
There's no question. I mean, U-Haul does their migration trends every year, and we come in first or second. And so I think for 2025, we came in second behind Texas.
Yeah.
And
That economist you talked about earlier,
Rick Harper.
he had a presentation this morning about how it's changing. It's not the higher numbers that it used to be. We're getting a lot of people from the west coming here. We're getting different numbers of north, New York and whatnot coming. Aren't coming in the numbers that they used to.
Oh yeah, no question. So, you know, none of this crazy ups and downs and all arounds that is not sustainable, right? So like, the appreciation we saw from 2020 to 2023, if you will, not sustainable. The amount of people that were moving from New York and upstate, kind of northeast to Florida, not sustainable, right? Just, it wasn't gonna continue, right? So what we're seeing is a lot of people go, damn, it's hot in South Florida, right? That moved here from the northeast, or they got called back to their job, or whatever it may be, right? Because they called them back into the office. So you see a good chunk of people moving back up, or they missed family. That's real, right? So they moved back, but you're also seeing a bunch of people stay that came down here and experienced it, and now you're seeing what I think of as a more sustainable migration into Florida. That whole world where it was like print money, 50-60% appreciation over 3 years, millions of people uprooting their lives and moving across the country. I hope we never see that again, right? You know, that wasn't a healthy, normal market. That was a lot.
It's almost like the 2008 scenario,
Yeah.
but in a different way. It's
No
just
question.
Like, it's unusual.
Yeah, so I would say that like, we've gotten back to more normalcy, you know, from a housing market, from migration patterns, all that. You know, if you want my opinion, I don't know that anybody wants it, but I think that, like it or not, there's this movement to reshore a lot of manufacturing into the country to get our supply chains more shored up. And I do think that means, you know, and this, I'm not getting political, so don't hurt me. But you know, while you don't see the migration into the country that you have been seeing, I don't think that there's any way that all those jobs and all that need gets filled without some form of legal migration.
Exactly.
Right? Or immigration into the country. So what does that mean? That means more housing is needed, more rentals are needed, because you know, if you're actually going to process, you know, rare earth minerals, and you're actually going to create the steel that we need and build the ships that we need and all of those things, you know, robots can do a lot of that, but you're going to have a lot of humans get involved, and the generation, like, we have not been training up our generations to do those jobs, and a lot of them have been the white collar jobs, and those are going to go first with AI. So that went down a totally different path. But I guess what I'm saying is I think that there's a strong need for housing moving forward, just naturally. And also, this is something, I'll end with this, unless you guys have further questions. I'm cool staying, but baby boomers were the largest generation ever recorded, and my dad's generation, and then I forget what came next after that, because it doesn't get talked about in the media a lot. Does anyone know?
They like called silent generation.
Yeah,
or
silent.
something?
They're the silent, the forgotten generation or something like that.
Something happened there. I don't know what was going on, but timing, right? The moon wasn't out or something. But then there's the millennial generation, and that's my generation, and it's actually the largest cohort of demographically people that they've ever been in the United States, right? In this age bracket, it's insane when you look at how few of them have bought homes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of affordability, it's because people are having kids later, it's because people are getting married later, it's because of higher education, so people are graduating from schools later. All of those things are taking place, but just if nothing else changed, you know, demographics do lead the economy in a big way from a spending standpoint. And I mean, I think the average age of a home purchaser, am I crazy?
43?
It's like, what is it?
43?
It's like 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think the middle of the pack of the age demographic for millennials, like, so I'm 34, like I'm right in the pack, in the middle. So there's still like 6 years, I think, from what I've read, of people building up to their first home purchase. So anyways, I think that, long story short, buy real estate. You know, I think, yeah. Awesome. Any other questions?
So Addie took these at the Blue Angels this year, and I figured you might want something for your office, so we wanted to say
Yeah.
thank you for.
Oh man, I appreciate it.
First
Thank
week
you.
tonight.
Thank you,
Addie
brother.
took it, so you can tell. Addie.
Awesome. Thank you, Addie. Appreciate it. Here, I'll get you like this.
All right. Tell her skinny.
Perfect lighting.
Yeah. The flash will take care of it.
Awesome.
The projector all over.
Appreciate everybody. Hey, and I'm a realtor, so I've got my number out there. If anybody wants to talk to me, my number is 850-501-5817.